Hello friends and welcome back to the channel. As a carpenter, I think installing a new door into an old frame is one of the most difficult jobs that we have to do from time to time. In this particular case that you'll see on this video, the door frame was going from the floor to ceiling. So obviously replacing that with a new one, it will create obviously more labor costs, and it just did not fit in the budget. So I'm just going to show you how I'm dealing with installing a new door in an old frame. So I'll turn the camera around now. Okay, so this is our door frame. You can see that the door frame goes from floor to ceiling, and it does have a glass panel at the top which we covered with MDF. And this is our door. You can see it's an oak veneer door, and when you're going to install it, just make sure you put it the right way. So you will see this two pieces of wood at the top and at the bottom, and one it's wider than the other one. So always the wider one is at the bottom, because sometimes you have to cut it. It's also very important to read the instructions that they are coming with the door, just because sometime or most of the time you have to trim the door, and they will tell you how much you can trim the door without having any problems. Obviously, to don't see any rough edges or the material that is actually under the door lipping. In this particular cases, we can trim 6 mm from the either side, but if this is a fire door, bear in mind you can only probably do 3 mm. So very important, read the instruction and understand your product. And the first thing that we have to do is to check our door frame and see how straight it is and how level it is. So we'll take a 600 mm level and we'll check the top. We have a 4 mm packer on the left, and now our level looks that is level. So all we know now is that we need to cut 4 mm from the side where the hinges are to 0 or to nothing on the left hand side, and this will give us a very nice square edge at the top. Always try to keep your door square at the top and have the same distance, because this is something that you always gonna see as soon as you go in. That's first thing that you're going to see. So obviously in here I'm using a track saw, and I'm cutting 4 mm from the hinge side with 0 on the other side. So the distance that I'm always trying to have between the door and the frame is 3 mm. So basically that is the standard, but you are okay if you do between 2 and 4 mm. You are still in the regulation, so it's fine even if it's a fire door. I like to keep 3 mm, and I do my best to do so. Sometime obviously when you are installing a new door in an old frame, sometimes that's not possible, so you just have to do the best you can. 2 to 4 will be okay. 3 mm will be very good. So after I cut at the top, I'm just putting the door in the position and put a couple of packers to hold the door down. You notice there's two red packers at the top. They are 6 mm, so obviously the door will have to go up a little bit. On the left hand side you see I have a packer that is 4 mm, and now I'm trying to see what do I need to plane, because there's no gap there, there's like 3 mm there, and there's no gap there, and there's 2 mm there. So like I said, now the door is square at the top. Now I just have to do so way that I have 3 mm on the left and 3 mm on the right. So on the right hand side obviously is touching, so I'll probably have to take 2 or 3 mm, because I already have 4 there. So if I take 2 from there, I will have 6. In here I already have a 3 mm, so I don't have to take anything. So I will cut 2 mm from the top with 0 at the middle. In here, obviously touching, I will take 3 mm from there with nothing, where I have this packer which is 3 mm. I will do the same on the left hand side, so that this is the side where you have the handle and the lock. And after that, after I did all the marks, I know what I have to cut or what I have to plane. I will use the track saw because it's a lot more easier than to use a planer, and I will do my best to obviously cut to the marks that I did. Okay, so after we marked the side, the left hand side and the right hand side, all we have to do is to mark the bottom, because we need to cut the bottom to fit obviously the carpet or the laminate flooring, whatever you're gonna have in the room. We know that we're gonna have a laminate flooring, and we know that we have to have about 15 millimeters gap at the bottom. So we just took two packers that are 6 millimeters, so we have 12 millimeters there and 12 millimeters there, knowing that our door needs to go 3 millimeters higher than it is now. So in total that will be 15 millimeters. That will obviously be enough to have laminate flooring and the insulation that we already know how thick they're gonna be. Now we're gonna start cutting the door, obviously to our marks. I'm gonna use a track saw because it is a lot easier than to use a planer, and I have one. But if you don't have one, obviously you will have to use a planer, and try to be very careful to go with the planer straight and not go at an angle, because it's very easy to go with the planer at an angle. So I do like small cuts from mark to mark, and then you will see me, I will use a sander and sand the rough edge, and kind of like around the corners again to look like the factory edge. This is an oak veneer door, so obviously we want to be very careful when we do the cuttings and the sandings, not to go through the veneer and not to do anything that we can't fill, because we won't paint them. These doors will only have we're only gonna have 2 layers of natural oil, so they will look exactly like they are, and obviously everything that you are going to damage, it will be shown in your final product. So always take care, always try to cut or plane less or to the limit, because you can always take some more, but if you cut or plane too much, you can't obviously add it back. So after we cut the door and sanded the door, we obviously test it and make sure that it fits, and it fits very well. We are ready now to cut the hinges. So I will show you how I'm doing the hinges. By the way, this hinge has been bought by the client. He only had 2 pairs per door, but we're gonna have to install 3. So we'll nick one from the other set, and then we're just gonna have to buy some more. Let me show you something very quickly. So you can see the hinge. You can see that one side have the pin attached. The right hand has the pin attached, and the left hand obviously is the one that moves around the pin. So we always try to do the one on the left to install that on the door, and the other side will go into the frame. It's not a big problem if you have them the other way around, as long as you obviously have them the other way around and you have them all of them, because if you do one like this and one the other way around, you might have a problem. So you will see that your door is catching and your door doesn't close properly. Going back to the frame now, we are trying to install these hinges to match the old hinges, just in case obviously, because we don't want to do too much filling. But if you can see here, if you will do that, then you only see half of the hole. So if you will try to put a screw in that hole, you will find that that screw will pull your hinge away. So that won't work, because we can't align the door properly. You can see here, as soon as you're going to put a screw there, your hinge is going to be pulled down, and that's obviously going to ruin everything that you've done so far. So in this case, we'll have to cut the hinge in a different location just to avoid the holes and drill new holes. So in this case, we're gonna lift the hinge up about 10-12 millimeters, and then you can see that we don't match any holes. So you see here, and then if we lift the hinge up like I did my pencil mark, then we're gonna avoid drilling into the same holes. Also, this one is a frame, so this door stop is not removable, it's part of the frame. So we'll have to be very, very careful, because if we set the door too much in, it will catch in the doorstop, and obviously all we can do maybe is to shave that a little bit, but we can't remove it and we can't move it. When I'm trying to measure up for hinges and transfer the hinges from the frame to the door, I always like to keep a 3mm packer and measure from that packer to my hinge, which I already cut, and then I have an exact measurements, and I don't have to worry about taking the measurements and then add or deduct and so on, because this is where sometimes you are making errors. So if you keep a 3mm packer, which is our distance that we want to have between the door and the frame at the top, you can measure exactly, and that measurements you can transfer that obviously on your door and cut your hinges. And always make sure you put the hinge on the right location, because you don't want to cut the hinge on a different location, because like I said, this one is a veneer door and you can't do any repairs. While you see me measuring and marking the hinges, I would like to say thank you to all the subscribers. I would like to say thank you to everybody that has joined this channel. Your support is very, very important, and I can assure you that there will be a lot more content coming into the future. So once again, thank you very much, and it's very appreciated. So after I took all my measurements, I'm just gonna mark the hinges. You see me here holding the standing knife, but I'm not gonna show you how to do that with the standing knife, because I don't recommend that if you are in the beginning. So what I will use instead is a very sharp pencil. So take your pencil, make sure it's very, very sharp, and draw a line around your hinge. So when you're gonna come to chisel that off, you always try to be inside of that line, because like I said before, that you can always take some more, but you can never add something else back. And now I'll take the camera and I will show you this a bit closer. Yeah, so this is how you hold your hinge. So you see it has to be flush with the door, you can see here. Yeah, and then you just take your pencil, sharp pencil, and mark the edges. So mark the hinge like I did there. So you do that for all three, and then we're just gonna start to cut the hinges. So now I'm gonna take a chisel and I will show you how I do cut my hinges. I will show you one with the chisel, and then I will do the rest with a small router. I like to use a small router for the hinges. Is obviously this one is obviously faster, and I think it does do better results, but I know that not everybody will have one, so I will show you how I used to do it with the chisel, when I started and when I did not have a router. But if you obviously find yourself that you're doing quite a lot of doors, I will suggest you spending the money and buy one of these small routers, because they are very, very good. So the first thing that we have to do is to use the chisel and cut out the pencil line where we obviously mark the hinge. So do that very carefully, nice and sturdy, and like I said, try to keep it inside the line. And obviously the angle part of the chisel always inside of the hinge. And now let me show you, this is what we have to do first. So we cut it inside of that pencil line. And now with the same chisel, we're just gonna cut a series of lines inside of that line that we just created, and we have to go obviously as deep as obviously the thickness of the hinge. So do every like 5 mm, I would say, because this way we're just gonna break the wood fiber, and that will be a lot more easier to clean the surface for the hinge. I will take the camera now and I will show you what we created, and now you will see it will be very, very easy to clean that wood in order to obviously have the hinge there. So you just take your chisel and very nice and gentle just remove this wood, and then obviously you're just gonna put your hinge, see if it fits, and if you have to obviously take a bit more, just do it. So by doing that, you can see we break the fiber of the wood, and the chances of splitting the fiber or going too deep is very, very minimum. Right, so this is done. I just cleaned the edges, and now I'm gonna show you how the hinge fits. This is how it looks. um, and let me put the hinge on, and yeah, it fits very well. Oops, let's try again. Okay, so the hinge fits very, very well, you see, so it's nice and tight, and flush. This is what we're trying to obviously achieve, to have the hinge nice and flush and don't have big gaps around. Okay, so now I'm gonna do the rest with a small router. Like I said before, is easier, is faster, and it does create a better jobs. Because the chisel is okay, obviously, even if it is slower, but sometime, especially in the door frames, if you get to a knot, so let's say if the knot is exactly where the hinge is, then you will have problems there. Obviously, you can't chisel that knot very, very easily, so there you might have a dip, or um, then you might have a split. So doing this with the router is obviously, um, it does eliminate that problem. You can see me here chiseling the edges. You can chisel the edges first and then use the router, or you can router first and use the chisel and chisel the edges after. They pretty much the same. I don't see one that is faster than the other one. I normally tend to chisel them first and then use the router. And this is how the hinge fits. You see, it's the same result like when we did use just the chisel. It's just that is a lot more faster. So now we're ready to secure the hinges with the screws that has been supplied. One very important thing here is to pre-drill your hole before you actually putting the screw in, because sometimes, especially with the hardwood lippings that we have on this door, you will find that the screw can either snap or can either go wherever he wants, and you will find out that he is actually moving the hinge. So we just did a very nice job obviously cutting these hinges, and we want to make sure that the hinge will stay in the same location. So by doing that, we'll just take a pilot drill or a center drill and drill a hole and then put the screws in. I will show you with the pilot drill, because not everybody will have a central drill that actually centers into the hole. So I'm just gonna show you with the normal drill bit. You just have to go slowly and make sure you drill a hole into the middle of the hinge hole. So now we're gonna put all three hinges on the door, and obviously we're gonna try to hang the door and see what we did so far. But before that, let me tell you a few things about where to place the hinges on the door. So the bottom hinge should be around 9 inches from the bottom of the door. The top one should be about 6 inches from the top. Here it's a bit less because you remember we had to move it a bit higher, and the middle one has to be in exactly the middle position between the top and the bottom one. Now is the moment of the truth. Let's install the door into the frame and see what we did. So I placed a few packers under the door just to put it on the right level, so it will be easier for me to drill a pilot hole and then place a screw. um, you don't have to use packer. There's other things that you can use. You can use a step, specially designed for this type of application, or you can use these infill bags, again specially designed for this kind of applications. I will show the method of the packers, because most of the people, if they're doing this on a DIY system, they probably won't have them. So you will be tempted to put a screwdriver or a chisel under, but that might dent your door. So much easier will be to put some plastic packers under the door, and this way you don't obviously have the chances to damage the door. Okay, let me take the camera and show you up close what we did. We haven't put all the screws in, just in case we have to obviously move the door up or down, and we're just gonna have to fill that bit there. The frame is getting painted anyway, so I think we did a pretty decent job. I think the gaps between the door and the frame are very consistent. I'm very happy with that, obviously being an old frame that was all crooked and not straight. You see there is probably 4 millimeters, and the rest is 3. Yeah, you can't go for a perfect fit, because that might not happen. But yeah, I think we did pretty decent. Yeah, so I think that will be for this video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoy it. I hope now you can install a new door in an old frame by yourself. Please subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you next time with a different video. Thank you very much. Goodbye.